Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Brew Bar. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language, and I will not go to my room. And welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast, the Final Destination edition. Today we're talking about Final Destination 5. My name is Michael Shantz. I am from the How Dare You Awards. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Tom Stewart from Lonesome Whistle Productions. Hi, Tom.
They're called tits. It was either that or Yum Yum Dim Sum, and I didn't want to go there.
Oh, man. Boy, do I have a note about Yum Yum Dim Sum. Fucking shit.
I didn't want to put that back in the world.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, everybody, we're talking about a 2011 movie directed by Stephen Quayle, new to the series, right, Tom? Final Destination 5. This guy was a big assistant director, clearly worked a lot with Cameron. He was an assistant director on Avatar, on Titanic. Sadly, also Rocky and Bullwinkle. But
well, no one came out of that well, not even De Niro.
Nope. But it looks like this was his big chance, and for my money, he pulled it off, man.
Definitely. Got a lot of great things to say about his direction in this movie.
I was putting this movie off after watching the fourth one, because I thought, for sequels on a long enough timeline, once you start making shit, it just gets worse and worse. And I was putting this movie off just thinking, oh, man, do I not want to watch that movie.
There's a lot of things that count against this movie before you go into it. I think the fact that it's the fifth in the series, which are typically not the most accomplished.
See A Good Day to Die Hard.
A Good Day to Die Hard, Rocky V, Rambo Last Blood. And it's interesting, for me, what Quayle did, which was quite nice, is that rather than straying from what the fifth installment of a movie does, he just kind of refined it so it's actually good. But he's pulling a lot of the same shit. That you get in all those movies we just talked about, including the recap montage, which is in maybe not A Good Day to Die Hard, but certainly in Rocky and Rambo.
Absolutely.
But doing it in a way where I'm like, I'm on board for this.
Yeah.
Because this is a movie that is very comfortable with itself being the last of this series.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes a very strong it ends on such a high that it completely justifies its own conclusion.
I agree 100%. Yeah.
So I've generally nothing but good things to say about this movie.
Well, the movie itself was, we talked about how each of these sequels and the original itself were all successes. This one just barely squeaked by. Again, like a budget of $40 million, made 42.5 in America.
Right.
But in the world, 157.8 million cumulatively. So, again, that's a profit.
Yeah, and I think, the Final Destination leaves a bad taste in your mouth, as you said.
Yeah.
And this is only 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're making sequels that aren't working at such a rate, it doesn't bode well. So the idea that this movie made any kind of profit, I think, is remarkable. Because...
Yeah, me too.
Because I think, as an audience, I'd like you, I'd want to avoid this one.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that
because it's not 2 years is not long enough to kind of
yeah, exactly
solve the problems of the series, and yet that's exactly what they do. But I don't think anyone was expecting that they would.
I agree. Yeah, you have that sense that after 4, the audience is getting a little tired.
It really has to pull something out of its ass that you've never seen before. and it delivers.
It does. And so we talked about, we kind of, alluded to this in the last podcast, but it delivers on multiple levels.
Yes.
It delivers just story-wise, it delivers on direction, it delivers on performances, at least compared to the last movie. And it also delivers on 3D.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 3D works so much better in this movie than it did in the previous try.
And I think, what I mean, we had this as our we both had this as our second favorite in the series.
Yeah.
And where I think it really harks back to our favorite of the series, Final Destination 3, is I think there is something going on here thematically that is quite interesting. But it's what I think this movie is about, like the underlying themes of this movie are just there to kind of flavor the movie. So that's another big difference from Final Destination, where it immediately hits you over the head with racism and continues to hit you over the head with it throughout the movie without offering any...
But for no
reason and with no game.
With no planned end game.
But, and for me, this movie is about, at one level, is about corporate America, and it's about labor more generally.
Yeah.
And those themes are certainly there, but they don't interfere with you having a good time. And this being, another completely formula-driven Final Destination movie that gives you everything you want. All the pleasures of those movies. Plus, if you want to think about it, there's actually some interesting stuff to provoke your thoughts.
I would agree with that. Like you said,
not yum yum dim sum, but
no, that's where it's at its least successful. That character, fuck that character. Shit. Well, so part of the big thing about these movies is the manner in which you are going to be delivered. Before we get to yum yum dim sum, the part of the big thing about these movies is the manner in which you are going to be delivered your premonition. You alluded to this in the last podcast that this seems uninteresting in the sense that you have a business retreat, right?
When you've had roller coasters, planes,
right,
a racetrack, this initially seems less exciting. But again, I think that's a little bit of a bait and switch.
Exactly right. And so that's what I wanted to say was you have this sort of benign thing, and look, a lot of exposition character-wise is given in this first 5 minutes of preparing to get on the bus to leave for the business trip, right? You find out everything you need to know about all of these characters, right? And so in that way, it's pretty efficient.
Well, also, it's a very sequel thing to take, not that these characters are continuing on, but, one of the ways that we do, sequels or big screen adaptations of TV shows is to put the characters in a bus and send them somewhere.
Right.
There's a generation of British movies based on sitcoms that just take the cast of the sitcom, put them in a bus, and send them on a trip. So, but it's an inauspicious opening that at the time you're sort of worried that they're dropping the ball because it's not
right
that promise of spectacle. But that's misleading, and I think it's deliberately misleading. Because it is so...
That's interesting. So you think it was purposeful?
Well, I don't... In retrospect, given how good the movie is...
trying to lull you? Is that what you mean?
I didn't think that at the time. But when I think... but I didn't know I didn't know how good a movie this was going to be at the time. But I could almost give it the benefit of the doubt. I think certainly it's trying to sort of... It's trying to create something more ordinary and relatable than the situations that we normally find ourselves in this series. Something you really are doing. You don't go on a road trip every day. You don't get on a plane every day. You don't go on a roller coaster every day. But you go to work every day. in some form or another. And I just think, I think about 2011, I think, The Office just went off the air. We're probably like the highest demand for these sort of workplace-based narratives.
Maybe, yeah.
That we've kind of had in a while. And when David Kushner turns up, I'm like, well, he's fucking in The Office, so
yeah, exactly.
It probably isn't an accident.
When you see Packard,
who is being very Packard in this movie.
Completely and totally Packard.
So, yeah, no, I mean, I think it might have been it might have been a little bit of a bluff, but like you say, it's just a nice opportunity to introduce everybody, and also and the central, what are going to be the central conflicts of this movie. And thankfully, they're not racial.
Right. Yeah, right.
When they got onto that factory floor, and there was a young African-American guy and an old Teamster, old white Teamster, I was like, oh, fuck. We're in trouble again.
Yeah.
And then I cannot tell you how delighted I was that their conflict is based around age, union affiliation.
Yes, right.
No. And class. Those are the... I'm like, oh, my God, this movie speaks my language.
Yeah.
It's not at all about race. It's about socioeconomic stuff that
I don't hate you for the color of your skin. I hate you for many other reasons.
And I love that because I'm just like, it's like we're not going to have to hear the N-word. We're just going to have to hear how he's like a young, privileged piece of shit.
Piece of shit, right, exactly.
So I
did sort of revel in that as well.
Yeah, and that's right, because that in the end is what the movie is gonna end up being about. Like, it paints a very dark picture of kind of, I guess, millennial labor.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know about you, but I don't know what these characters do for a living.
Oh, agreed. No, me neither.
They seem to work in an office during the day. They're also in college.
Except day drink during the day at the office. And yeah, while still being it's...
They're in college. They work at an office. One of them's a gymnast. The other's a chef. Yeah, it is very confusing. But then I think, well, is this like prophetic about the casualization of labor, that you can't make a living without 4 or 5 different side gigs if you're of a certain generation that doesn't have property behind you or wealth behind you. There might be a little bit of that, or maybe it's just maybe it's just they realize that there's a limit. It's like we just want all of the deaths.
Yeah, right, yeah.
We want one in a kitchen, we want one in a gymnasium, we want one in an office. I think it's more that. It could be a combo of both, and I'm content with both, and I'm content with it being a combo.
Well, can I ask you, because we talked in the last movie about the title sequence with the X-rays. Yes. I have a note here that says... I have a secondary note that says this is going on a little too long, but
I agree.
I wrote that this was my favorite title sequence. I really dug the music behind it, everything about the title sequence. I was really digging in this movie.
Yeah, I think the opening titles are over 3 minutes long, and that's too much. Again, I think we're still trying to oversell the 3D element a little bit. But yeah, I agree. I remember thinking, not only is this a really good title sequence, the fact that it does the same shtick as the Final Destination's X-Ray title sequence, but it just looks a whole lot better.
Better, right?
It's the perfect contrast. It's like, it's not about necessarily changing the paradigm, it's about doing the paradigm properly.
Yeah. I have a note here that says coffee cups and knife blocks breaking mirrors.
Yeah. And again, we're going back, it's like we're going back to the essence of 3D, which is a skull flies at you.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like you, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I tell you what else I really liked, and this is another huge contrast. That grunge metal that we talked about in the Final Destination,
Yeah,
is replaced by an orchestral score.
yes,
And I love the fact that I think orchestral scores are really good for the material of this series, because it has that kind of hokey, old-fashioned horror movie idea. It's like death is out to get you. You know, we're one step away from the figure with the the hood and the scythe, and the orchestra just kind of brings the classicalism of it to the fore.
Yes, I agree completely. Like if your Freddy Krueger in your movie is death itself, which you never see, orchestration is going to be your friend. So use it.
And and then it just automatically doesn't date as easily as a a movie using the worst music of its time does.
Well, and all of these movies sort of hinge on the inciting accident. Mm-hmm. Where's this one lay for you?
The accident? You mean
the bridge?
Right. Yeah. Great. I
think this one's my favorite out of all of them. Okay,
I wouldn't go that far. I think.
Well, no, I do like the roller coaster the best.
The roller coaster and the subway would be mine. But I thought the deaths were very good. It's interesting. I kind of I thought again the tumbling down on the coach. I think it's Isaac who falls through the coach, like his body's bounding around inside the coach, the bus.
I don't know character names. Is that Yum Yum Dim? That's Yum Yum Dim Sum, right?
That's Yum Yum Dim Sum.
Yeah,
I remember thinking, boy, that would look great in 3D.
Me too. And when who is it that falls off the side? Falls off the side and hits the boat mast.
Oh, is it? No, that's... Oh, and we have David Koechner turning into an oil slick zombie.
Yes, yeah.
And that's not even the best death he has in the movie.
No! Yeah!
That's how good this sequence... Yeah, that's how, good this movie is. It's like, it's again, I thought it's restraining itself a little bit, but I like that. I like that, Final Destination 2 blows its load pretty early on in the movie.
Yes.
And I loved it for that because it completely fits the tone. And here I feel like they're playing for time a little bit, and they don't want to have everything just concentrated in that, even though it's a great sequence.
Yes. But the other thing to me is we talked so much in the last episode about how much of the CGI did not work.
Yeah.
And there are certainly moments in this opening sequence in which you're like, okay, that's CGI, but it looks a lot better.
It does, yeah.
And there are some moments there's less of it, and there's some moments, there's a couple of shots that are, a good few hundred yards away, establishing shots of the bridge collapsing, and I think to myself, man, that looks fucking good. Like that was kind of cool.
I think, and again, I think this is the sign of a good film. It's like you don't always know what you're seeing when you're seeing it. Like you have to think about it in context of the rest of the movie.
Sure.
And there was a couple of things that I at the time had kind of written off to bad screenwriting that were then picked up later in this sequence in this movie. So I'm like, okay, that's a setup for something that comes back later on in the movie. That first of all, when Sam, who is the lead character in this, once he has the premonition and he gets off the bus, he grabs his girlfriend and leaves everyone else for dead.
Yeah, yeah.
And and part of me was like, this is our hero. And at the time I was like, is that a big that seems like a big writing oversight to have a hero who would do that. And then later on in the movie, he's called out for doing exactly
that, right? But I'll
Beautiful.
All right, I have so much to say on that particular subject, so let's take a break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, I do want to talk about that because I find this aspect of this movie maybe the most interesting thing about this movie.
It becomes that, certainly, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break, everybody, and we'll be back right after this. Can I ask you a question? Do you like beer? I like beer. It's required by law that you like beer when you're living in San Diego, California, but even I can get confused and dizzied by the amount of choices that you can see at your local beer store. What's a person to do? I'll tell you what you do. You'll watch the Vegas Beer Guys, a live show on Instagram and Facebook, and they will set you right as to what beers you should have in your life or should not have in your life. The Vegas Beer Guys are brought to you by Dan Aker, the beer professional, and Stephen Weiss, self-proclaimed beer novice. They'll drink beers for you and drink beers with you. Go ahead and check out their live shows, and they'll tell you which beers you should be having in your fridge. Everybody wants the perfect combination of malt and hops in your life, and Dan Aker and Stephen Weiss are the perfect combination of fantastic and wonderful. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on Instagram. Find them. You're going to watch their show and love their show. They give away free merch during their shows. So go ahead and check out the Vegas Beer Guys. What a great time. And we are back. Tom and I are here discussing the 2011 final film in the series of the Final Destination 5. So when last we left you, we were talking about sort of this, you were talking about sort of what you considered to be shitty writing of our lead character just dragging his girlfriend off the bus at the time, right?
At the time, I actually think it's just a setup for some interesting character.
And I half agree with you and half don't, where that thought occurred to me, but I also thought, thinking about intentions and thinking about character wants and that kind of thing, I started to think about, in all of these movies, they have to go to it's really difficult to, out of the blue, convince somebody to get off a plane, get off the highway, the lengths you'd have to go to actually convince people to do that if you were in that situation is extraordinary. So what I kind of liked about this movie is in the first premonition, he's like, we got to get off this bus. Everybody get off this bus. And the second they start giving him some shit, he's like, I'm out of here, And that felt kind of honest to me. Like, no, I know what's going to happen. So fuck you. Saving my life.
That's so true. He's already is that the first time that someone's in the premonition has done the... gotta get out of here. It's not the first time that's happened, is it?
Well, what do you mean? Like, did that in the premonition itself?
Within the premonition, tried to get people
off. Yeah, you might be right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm starting to think maybe not. But you're absolutely right.
Oh no, no. In all the premonitions. Well, certainly in the Final Destination, he's trying to get people out of there.
That's true, yeah. So maybe it is just down to what you're saying. It's sort of like, is maybe the first time, or at least the best realization of the idea of these people are not going to go no matter what I tell them.
So fuck them.
I'm just going to. Well, also, I think, if you think about it in terms of this is like a big screen adaptation of The Office,
mm-hmm.
What do these people mean to him?
True.
They're basic. They're like acquaintances, really, and it just seemed like, it's like how any of us would react to crisis. We would grab the thing that's most important to us, and that's his girlfriend. But given the context, it's like, fuck you all.
Right.
This is what's important to me.
Well, this is the thing that's at play at this movie, because she's his girlfriend, but she's not his girlfriend. Because that exposition scene at the beginning, she broke up with him that morning.
Right.
Right? So, and then what comes into play later, which I think is done far more successfully as the movie goes on, there's this one moment where I don't know the characters' names, but dark-haired guy.
Are you talking about the one who
the
turns...
gymnast's boyfriend and the one who turns? Yes.
Yeah.
So there's this moment.
I referred to him in my notes as Tom Cruise's untalented nephew.
For good reason, my friend. Aptly named.
Even though I think the performance is a little rough around the edges, but the character is the most interesting one
in the whole
probably ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I wasn't expecting that because you really have to wait until the end for that to pay off, because there's this moment in the middle of the movie where he's giving his friend shit for saving his girlfriend in the Premonition.
That's true.
And I'm like, wait, what? You're holding him accountable for what he did in a fugue-like dream state?
Beautiful, yeah.
But then at the same time, you can get his motivation later because, I mean, it's complete bullshit and nonsense, but it seems to me that the idea is he's upset because in his mind, hey, she broke up with you this morning, so she's not your girlfriend. Right. So, and I just found that whole turn, everything that turns around that, kind of pushed this movie to 11 for me in a way that really kept me interested.
Oh, absolutely. And it was to have him, and it's also this movie, interestingly, for a fifth movie, is doing a lot of firsts.
Yeah.
And one of the firsts, I think, is like, this is the first time we've seen anyone, if you discount, piece of shit Tampon Mon's kids and the pyromaniacs letting off the fireworks at the
but that's all accidents. That's all accidents.
This guy is, he's gone beyond being Death's surrogate, and he becomes essentially the killer.
Right.
Of the movie. So now it's not Death doing it through him. He's trying to take control of Death.
And that's why I like this movie.
Physical agency.
And that's why, right. And that's why I like this movie as much as I do, because it works so much better that a character decides to take on, to change his fate. Yeah. Because he's, but it's all human foibles, right? He's being selfish. He's only caring about himself. He's willing to take a life. And all of those things are inherently interesting because we're people.
The only thing that would have improved it for me is that we saw Death, we saw the Grim Reaper for the first time, and he was just putting out a cigarette and said, "My work here is done," and then disappeared.
Yeah. I actually had a different thought. I had a thought of the Grim Reaper with either an angel or God, and just sort of looks over and goes, "You owe me $50."
Yeah, completely. But the other thing, story-wise, that works so well about, having a character do this as opposed to, death through wind and or pigeons,
right,
is that the danger then extends to the person who we know survives. Because that's the big deal of this, is like, Molly is, based on the other movies, Molly is safe because she survived. Mm-hmm. So, but now there's a danger to her because some crazy kid is trying to kill her.
Right, exactly.
So we have a danger and a threat that we never had before.
And that's why it works.
Done.
Yeah,
Completely. Done. And we should probably talk a little bit about one of the most interesting aspects of this movie, which is the casting and characterization of Courtney B. Vance as Agent Block.
Yes. So this is what this movie has in common with the original movie, because I have a note that says, "Hey, the cops are back."
Cops care about stuff again.
Yeah, because in we talked about this in Final Destination 2, in which one of your lead characters is a cop, so cops revolve around it only in how they relate to him specifically. Yeah. But in the first movie, it's a big thing that, like, this kid took all the kids off the plane, the cops are suspicious, yeah. The cops find out it's an accident, but they're still looking at the kid and following the kid, and then people are dying, and,
Yeah.
And so that comes back into play in this movie. But again, for me, so much more successfully than in the first movie. It's overwrought in the first movie.
But there's more of an emphasis, and again, this is something like we haven't seen much of. Is we've got a cop whose kind of rational detective brain can't handle what's going on,
cannot fathom what's actually happening in reality,
and he needs to like backstory a conspiracy,
right,
in order to make this all make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great, it's sort of a little bit overused as the movie went on. I'm like, we really don't need this guy. And then Tom Cruise's untalented nephew turns into a killer. I'm like, we need this guy.
Now we need him, exactly.
And he's shot to death.
Right.
At that exact moment that he becomes, narratively necessary.
Necessary. It's exactly like Dick Halloran coming back in The Shining.
Yes. It's so, I mean, if you were gonna Looney Tunes it, he would like turn to the camera and just goes, "Us brothers can't catch a break in these movies." But yeah, it's and also oh god, we haven't even talked about the return of Tony Todd.
No, yeah, I was just gonna mention.
I mean,
more ominous than ever. By the way, I mean he is just.
Well, I've already asked this question, and it's not answered in the scope of the film. Why is he wearing a suit?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, part of me was like, they're going to talk about the fact that he was promoted, and he's like, I don't know, head of death, or whatever the job is, whatever the best job is at the...
In his basement dungeon of a morgue.
I'm just like, because that really struck me, that he was wearing a suit, and... It was nice because it's totally unexpected, and I actually didn't mind the fact that he was replaced by stuff printed out from the internet.
Right.
Because, you had that scene in the last two movies where you're like, hey, I got this stuff on Flight 180. And that's fine. It's like but once you see him, you're like, I forgot how good it is to hear that coming out of Tony Todd's mouth.
Of Tony, yeah, exactly, right.
But it doesn't add anything.
No, and they have to go to great lengths, because in the first movie and the second movie, they go to see him at his place of business.
But that's
if you're the coroner, like, people bring bodies to you and you cut them open.
Traditionally.
You're not riding around in the fucking van.
Unless you're bloodworth.
So that's where this Yeah, exactly. But
maybe he was wearing a suit because it was his day off and he was on a date. Maybe
this is what I do for a living.
He just takes his dates to graveyards. It's like, hey, I got this funeral of this kid who cheated death. You want to come?
I'm going to scare the shit out of these kids. Just wait till you see.
So that was a nice little...
So even though his character is completely unnecessary, and even though there's no rational reason other than the script needs him to be there, so he's there, even though all of that's dumb and doesn't work, like you said, just to have Tony Todd there and just to have those ominous musings coming out of his face hole, it's just great.
Yeah, it very, very, very ominous, and I think... I mean, it's pretty subtle, but I do get a sense... I thought they were going somewhere with this, that the character seems to have changed. I don't know if, like... I had in the back of my mind, I'm like, if this was a worse movie, it would turn out that he was death all along, or something.
Oh, okay, oh yeah.
I felt that they were going somewhere with that, but really it's like, we'd rather not, read this off Google again. Is Tony Todd available? Yes. Yeah. But he's...
All right, let's put him in.
Yeah. He's at a funeral, so he's already wearing a suit. Okay, just bring him in for the day.
Well, I mean, so this movie does harken back in the sense that it brings him back.
It's for a sense of completion as well, which this movie is definitely concerned with.
Well, and I also find it interesting that, like, you and I both love the addition of comedy that's used in the second movie so successfully. Not successfully in the fourth movie.
Right.
But it's the third and the fifth movies we like the most who kind of abandon the comedy.
The thought had struck me, and I think it's with Final Destination 2, and again, it was very close in my mind.
Right.
But it was just, Final Destination 2 is a hugely enjoyable movie. I don't think I've laughed out loud at a movie in recent years more than this movie. But that's that one note it hits constantly.
Right.
For Final Destination 3, so I put 3 and 5 above it, really because this was giving me something. It was like 2-3 notes, different flavors, different ideas, and doing them successfully.
Yeah, for me, this one rose above 2 because of the human element that came in, and death working through a human being. None of the other movies chose to do that, and that was really interesting and worked so well for me in this particular movie.
It's not with same with Final Destination 3. Like, it's not without comedy, but it's just very carefully placed. And associated with flawed characters, which again is a very sort of, I really think that this movie owes a lot to The Office, because it's it's the comedy, the awkward comedy of terrible people and the terrible things they say and do.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the character of Isaac, Yum Yum Dim Sum,
oh man,
works well enough. It's
problematic.
It's problematic.
But it doesn't make me, like in the previous movie, I was like, this is completely unnecessary, and I want it out, and it serves nothing.
Yeah.
And if somebody had made that argument to me about this character in this movie, I don't think I could say, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're right.
Yeah, he asks the character if they come with subtitles at one point.
Right, exactly.
And then the subtitles start.
Oh man, fuck.
But in the end, that sequence, the sequence we're talking about, is set in a massage parlor owned by a Southeast Asian family that
right.
Isaac mistakes for kind of
happy ending massage parlor. Yeah.
And the joke is almost always on him.
Right.
Because, there's like this sexy young woman at the reception that he thinks he's getting a massage from, and she switches out with her elderly mother, who like beats the shit out of him.
And I guess the thing for me is that somebody being aggressively racist, which happens in the previous movie, is hard to watch, and I just don't want to see it, especially since it goes nowhere and it just doesn't do anything for you. In this movie, he's aggressively stupid.
Yeah.
And that to me is more inherently funny. Because like you said, the joke is on him. And so his ignorance, I can kind of revel in his death because his ignorance is at such a height that you think, oh, I can't wait for this fucker to die.
Yeah, well, I think, in the lineage of characters like Dwight from The Office, or, those... I
kept thinking of Dwight, actually, like the moment in The Office when they're wearing what race or whatever minority they are, they're wearing on their forehead. And Pam Beesly is saying, okay, I don't believe in this, but according to some people, you might not drive very well. And he goes, oh man, am I a woman?
Yeah.
And that kind of ignorance is what this character felt like to me. So it just wasn't as it wasn't as heartbreaking as trying to watch that last movie.
And that actor, I've seen that actor play those
A
kind of
lot.
characters.
Oh,
in,
he's all over the
in actual
place.
sitcoms.
Yeah.
So I took it. Yeah, because
And he's not a bad actor. The other guy, I didn't feel was a very good actor.
Yeah,
either.
the guy who plays Hunt could have easily not known that the character was a jerk and was just playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this guy is definitely, this is his raison d'etre is these kind of awkward jerks.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you get a lot of funny shit for him because you have the switch out to grandma, and you have
David,
all the needles in his skin, which is just inherently funny.
There's the great gag that at the funeral he's on the list of the dead.
Yeah,
because he's so no one
knows who he is. Yeah,
they don't even know that he didn't die.
And he looks at him and goes, "Did he say my name?"
So I was fine with that, and there was just, I think, again, blending comedy and horror is such a hard thing, and in that whole massage sequence, 1 second it's like a scene from Hellraiser, the next it's like the 40-year-old virgin, and I'm like,
right,
yeah, this movie knows its audience, and it knows what kind of it knows what it wants to be.
It gets the levels right.
Yeah, it gets the levels right. That's exactly true.
All right. Well, we're smack dab in the middle of Final Destination 5, everybody. So hang tight. Listen to one more fabulous commercial, and when we come back, we'll finish out this lovely movie that we just I'm gonna say adore.
Is the commercial for laser eye surgery?
Oh, stay tuned, everybody.
If you're anything like me, you spend the majority of the day wondering whether you want coffee, beer, or wine. Whichever way you fall, Brew Bar has you covered. Located in the heart of 3rd Avenue Village in glorious downtown Chula Vista, California, which is also my neck of the woods, Brew Bar is a coffee shop, bar, and eatery rolled into one delightful package. Tim and Alex run the place, and let me tell you, listeners, these guys know their coffee. And after you've been in their company, so will you. They turned me on to pour over, and it's literally all I drink now. If for some crazy reason you don't want to try the best coffee in the world, they've got espresso drinks, all kinds of teas, and even coffee cocktails. You heard me? Coffee tails. And we're just getting started. Bottle service on craft beer and wine, alcoholic and caffeinated potions, an all-day food menu with plenty of vegan options. All served up in an atmosphere hip enough to know you're getting the best quality, but not too hip that you feel the need to drive to 7-Eleven and get a bucket of brown swill. Brew Bar. It's the best place to be for beer, wine, coffee, and tea. And if you go, you might even see me.
And we're back, everyone. Tom and I are here finishing up talking about the 2011 film Final Destination 5, the final film in the series. What do you want to talk about, Tom?
Well, I think we're ready to talk about laser eye surgery.
Well, and I was going to say, I mean, it might be my favorite death scene in all of these movies.
In my notes, I put classy. This is a classy piece of horror. It reminded me of Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
The Luis Buñuel surrealist film Un Chien Andalou. It's like we're working at a different level here.
I was just gonna say we're working on a different level.
Yeah, and I mean, first of all, I am not a horror completist by any imagination, so listeners, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I don't remember the idea of laser eye surgery being used as a source of horror.
Oh yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Because it's basically it's a surrogate for dentistry, it seemed to me.
Yeah, exactly right.
But
it plays on such a base fear.
Yeah. Oh my, yeah, being anything in the eye.
Yeah.
Being shot in the eye is even more terrifying than having my tooth hollowed out.
Right. Yeah.
So I just and the opportunity. I mean, it's interesting because it's flagged up early that she wears glasses,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always a bit leery of the way that glasses wearers are treated. As a glasses wearer myself, as the way that they're treated, especially women who wear glasses in movies, particularly Hollywood movies, as some kind of like instant freak for having a pair of glasses on.
Yeah.
And there's a little touch of that here, but the fact that they make the idea of laser eye surgery, which is something that to me just seems way more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of the risks, to sort of turn that into something like a source of anxiety is really effective because it essentially there's no way to sugarcoat it other than someone is shooting a laser in your eye.
Well, and let me ask you this, because even before we get lasers in the eyes, there's this moment where they're walking down the hall and they have this huge cylinder that looks like a miniature ball pit for discarded glasses. And I just remember thinking, there's no fucking way I'd give up my glasses. Like, even if I'm going in for surgery. I just because I wear glasses too, and I just thought, no, I'll hold on to these until we're done. Thank you. Just did not ring true to me at all. But
I mean,
but it gave this ominous feeling of, oh, I'm giving these up. And so I'll have no protection anymore. That's the feeling it gave me, was now that I'm giving this up, I have no protection.
Well, you wouldn't go in for, like, foot surgery and then, like, throw your crutch out of the window before you went in.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're like, just in case. I assume there'll be a recovery period. I mean, I love the way that they make all those, they turn it into something which is very... It's already, there's an element of fear there, and they just take that to 11 and make it as scary as the idea of going to the dentist.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about it. And the fact that, it's just there's something essentially good for horror that involves bad things happening to eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It just works. Don't
just
ask
works.
me why. But
we all know why. I mean,
well, yeah, but no reason why it would be that than say, like a penis or a vagina. It would be like why it would be any more or less worrisome. But...
Well, I think it plays on me to such a degree because even the thought of getting contact lenses gives me
interesting.
Gives me the sweats. Eye drops are hard for me. Even plucking my eyes open and trying to give myself eye drops is somehow I'll find a way to shut them.
Yeah.
And the idea of just sticking my finger onto my eyeball itself is something I can't even contemplate. So
when we did Final Destination 3, you offered a personal story, so I'm going to offer a very brief one, but one that I think is going to horrify you. It's about the day that I got contact lenses.
Oh.
And I got contact lenses. I went into the opticians, went through the whole procedure, put them in my eye. I was like, I'm going to keep them on for the rest of the day, okay? At some point, one of them must have fallen out of my eye.
Oh, no.
And when I got home, it was night. I wanted to take them out. I was trying to remove essentially my eyeball from my eye.
Oh my God.
And you would not. I mean, think Mike Pence's pink eye on a
Industrial scale.
on a like a Terminator scale. That's what my eye looked like at the end of it all. And I just kept, and it was.
But you didn't know? I mean, wasn't it? You didn't know when it came out? It wasn't blurry?
I was like, oh shit, it's stuck in my eye. That thing that the optician said's gonna fucking happened within seconds of me getting contact lenses. So now I've got the fear of, this is gonna be stuck in my eye. I can't get it out of my eye. So I'm just thrusting my finger into my eye to take anything that feels like it might be a contact lens, which is actually just my eyeball.
Oh, God.
Just the viscosity of my eyeball, which I'm touching.
Fuck. That's almost worse than the movie. Holy shit.
So, to summarize, this movie's onto something.
Oh, that's great. Well, but we do have, we're kind of short shrifting some other deaths here. We got we got Gymnast death. Although I do have a note here that says, where's my note? I said, I believe the gymnastics of Footloose more than this movie.
Yes. And that was, I really liked how much that was a slow burn. They introduced the idea of the nail on the horse very early on.
Right.
And so it all becomes about, when that's going to happen and how that's going to happen. And
again,
nice.
It reminds me of we were talking about the pacing in the last movie of the hair salon scene.
Yeah.
And you have the same thing at play here, where you're waiting for the terrible thing to happen.
100%, yeah.
And it's paced out in a way where you are crawling towards the edge of your seat. So it does work in that way.
Mm-hmm. And David Kushner gets
a
spanner in the face.
Oh man!
Having already died in what
the
might
Premonition.
Seem like, in what might seem like a death that could not be bettered is actually bettered by a spanner in the face.
Absolutely. Well, and we have the hook back for angry worker guy, angry worker class guy.
Yep. Yes, indeed. So yeah, there's some really, really strong deaths here. The way Isaac is dispatched with the Buddha crushing his head, I think, is wonderful.
Oh yeah, my note is Buddha death, laugh out loud.
And that's that kind of, we talked about this before of like, that to me is like a classic sort of John Landis horror moment. It's something where the symbolism is so obvious, the fact that this is a statue of Buddha, instant karma.
Right.
It's like written in, this is like American Werewolf in London. They arrive on a truck full of sheeps.
Yes.
Sheep.
Yeah.
It's like you can't get more obvious than that. Yeah, but it's so on the nose that it justifies itself.
That it works. Yeah. Exactly.
So they do all that brilliantly.
And then let's just get to this huge last set piece for this movie in the restaurant.
Yeah.
I mean, it all ties together quite wonderfully for me. We talked about bringing the human element in.
Yep.
So you have Tom Cruise's less untalented nephew. He is, what I considered earlier in the film to be kind of, because he was angry. Yeah. But I considered it bullshit anger. I was like, you're mad at what that this guy tried to save his special lady friend in a premonition.
Yeah.
But to then carry that over into baseness of human nature.
Yeah.
Of I'm going to try to take your life to save my life, to me is a brilliant stroke. And this is the only movie in the series that does that.
And also, it doesn't feel like an afterthought, because earlier on in the movie, and this is where, basically, in some senses, David Koechner doesn't have a lot to do except die in two spectacular fashions. Mm-hmm. However, he has what is perhaps the key scene of the movie, where he's basically like he becomes like a rat for Agent Block. He's informing on the people who work in his office,
Right.
and he says something along the line of, it's kill or be killed.
Yes.
And that is, basically we're relating, this idea of the rat race and corporate America,
Right.
to
this kid's plight.
Yeah. He's a product of that thinking. And I think that's beautifully done.
And I think it really is. Well, speaking just in terms of these movies, I'll go ahead and call it a masterstroke. but
yeah,
but I do think it works.
It feels like we've been talking about nothing but these movies forever.
I know. Yeah, I agree. It's like we entered the Final Destination cul-de-sac and we can't get out.
I'm perfectly willing to believe that these are the only movies that exist in the world.
I
know. Which is why I'm talking about David R. Ellis as if he is fucking Orson Welles. Because of these movies, he is.
Yes.
But what I really want to talk about is what possibly my favorite section of any movie, which is the last sort of 10 minutes of this movie.
Oh, okay.
So, and this is, first of all, and something we didn't mention about the Final Destination, which I think is very relevant comparing it to this. We have all of these films have a fake ending.
Right.
Fake ending, time-lapse, final scare. You can set your watch by it.
Mm-hmm.
In the Final Destination, this happens about 3/4 of the way through. They start toasting with champagne.
Right.
And you're like, even for this
too soon.
This is too early. Yeah. Too early. This is really premature. Here, we're like, okay, we've seen this first, we've got this twist that we've never seen before,
mm-hmm.
where it's not death, it's a physical person
character
killing everybody. So I'm like, okay, things have changed. Then we get a time lapse. I'm like, oh fuck. So some things don't change. Right. We're into final scare territory here after the time lapse. Aside from the fact that I would have thought they would have retired the number Flight 180, because who's going to get on a plane with that number? But anyway,
well, but we're at the end anyway, so. But I feel like I think they give that surprise ending up pretty early in the movie.
Oh no, and that's not the bit that impresses me.
Okay.
What impresses me here is, and again, we have, all it is the double premonition thing.
Mm-hmm.
But where this movie is just so brilliant at deploying this is the premonition is experienced by like an extra. Like a kid who we see briefly.
Right.
And we're not following their perspective.
No.
So the person's premonition who comes true isn't one of those characters. It's just some guy on the plane. Because we see him dragged off the plane at the beginning going, we gotta get out! It's like, this guy's, got to be ejected from the plane. So it creeps up on you. And it's like a total bait and switch. And that isn't even the ending. The ending is that the plane drops on the remaining character to be killed. Nathan. Beautiful.
Yeah.
A plane literally drops out of the sky onto someone.
But again, speaking to the 3D in this movie.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were talking about Jaws 3D, and when you're a kid, you have silly thoughts, I said in that podcast, and it's like, oh, if it's 3D, blow the shark up and have its guts come out the screen. And then when I saw it, I thought, oh, that's why you don't do that. It looks stupid. And I even thought that as a kid, But that's exactly what happens in this movie, and I'm like, that's what I wanted.
But it's just, because it's
like slows down into slow motion, and I reveled in how I was delighted by how they did that.
Yeah, and it's really, yeah, I mean, the recap montage happens after this point, and so, but if if you think about comparable sequences like that, they're basically, they're showing, the purpose is to show scenes from previous movies to remind you how good this franchise once was. as if you would forget how bad this was. But this is working on a totally different level.
Yeah.
It's like, here's as good as we're gonna get, storytelling wise.
Let's stop.
Roll the montage.
Yeah. Well, and that's the great thing is, when we were doing the ranking and the good or bad minisode, I was saying, I love that these movies, I love how they're titled. It's just 2, 3, and then you have the final destination, but it's not the final destination. But when they come back, it's Final Destination 5. But the reason you can do this movie at all is because in the end, it turns out to be a prequel, and the flight they get on in the end is the flight that begins the whole thing in number 1. Yeah. And there's great symmetry in that it's just so delicious.
Yeah, exactly. So that it's just perfectly done and a perfect sense of completion. And what I found really interesting for our purposes about that recap montage is that we didn't see any of the original movie in there. Mm-hmm. It's just the sequel.
Yeah.
What is that saying?
I don't know. But like we were saying, they're all, all these sequels, save for one, they're all better than I think the first movie, and there's something in that.
And that seems to be what we're pushing, because if you think about, the one in Last Blood, it goes right back to First Blood,
right.
Before he even gets to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Rocky the same. I mean, it's a weird thing. Really stands out that we're not doing anything. We're not recapping anything. I don't know. It could simply be a rights issue.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a choice to sort of say these sequels stand on their own.
Yeah, I know.
we don't need to trade off, the first movie in the same way that you kind of need to do with a franchise that has weaker parts. Mm-hmm. It's like it's basically saying there was a bit of a rocky road here,
but we're here.
But we're here.
We made it.
It was more or less plain sailing.
Yeah.
Unlike any other franchise that we will ever see.
I agree. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, the Final Destinations. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. Because I think they're worth your time, and then come back and listen to us. It's a good time.
Well, yeah, leave your preconceptions at the door.
Yeah.
Because this is a roller coaster ride of tone that you don't get in many
series.
Yeah. But and you do get that. You do get a roller coaster of tone in a lot of series, but normally there's these incredible lows and highs of quality that go with it. And aside from, the inevitable dud here, we're talking Die Hard standards of consistency.
Mm-hmm. And that's saying something.
Real from us.
Yeah.
It's again in our tiny little world,
in our world, yeah,
which does not represent the whole of cinema by any means.
What a perfect place to end it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the Final Destination series. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. We'll have another series coming at your ear hole soon. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, I'm Mike Shantz from the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye, Tom.